Welcome back. I thought the last video would be the last that I had to comment about this. Again, we're going back to the Charlie Kirk shooting that occurred a couple of days ago. And the information has been released within the 36 hours that they caught the individual confessing to doing the shooting. Now, I want you to take a moment, okay? Everything that has been released within the FBI, the entire report so far up to this date, as of September 12th, 6 p.m. Now I want you to take that and write down the description of exactly what they've reported in their transcripts, so on and so forth. Now I want you to go back to the different reports that came out of the Kennedy shooting, with Oswald, so on and so forth. And something that was mentioned during that original report back 50 years ago, 60 years ago, excuse me, pertaining to the sound that the crowd within the area heard. And you hear about the grassy knoll when it comes to the report of the Kennedy shooting. Not only was there 3 shots, the crowd heard 4. Now again, we're going to speed up to a couple of days ago. And for any of you that can view, it should still be, available. You might not be able to see the actual shooting, the impact, so on and so forth. But multiple individuals, even if they weren't focused in on Charlie, you'll be able to hear the actual gunshot in the background. Okay? For any of you that have ever been to a range with whatever caliber rifle, any of you that's been in the military that's actually had live rounds flying over your head, you know the crack sound, so on and so forth, at extended distances. But within 200 meters, as being reported by the FBI, do you hear any echo off the buildings? So again, the layout of the actual shooting there's multiple buildings in the area. It basically creates a bowl. Now again, anybody that's ever shot anything or heard a loud noise with, say, like in a football stadium or a baseball diamond stadium, the noise is amplified because of the echo that travels between the walls and exits to the top. Now if you listen to any of the videos, it was a silent shot. There was no big explosion. The end of the barrel boom with any of the audio broadcasts shared with all these different videos. It was the crack. That was it. Okay. Now, the other angles that were actually focused in on Charlie, where was he sitting? He was sitting inside of his little shelter house, right? And there was basically a banner in the background. What was behind it? His entire security detail. All of his personnel that help set up things, do crowd control, and the vehicles parked in a parking garage were also located right here. So now going back to my previous video, mentioning that if the shooter, the one on this rooftop, is responsible, the angle, again, go back to the videos, look which way Charles is looking, where the impact occurs. If that's the entrance point, okay, it's a round hole. It's not an elongated removal of flesh. It's a hole. If that's the case, the projectile would go on through. Okay? Now, if he was shot with an entrance hole either somewhere on the front of his body, as some are saying because of the movement of his shirt, which would be self-explanatory, there would be an entrance wound and an exit wound. So now with the trajectory, again going down, the projectile had to go in, turn, and come back out. And even in that case, the projectile would have to go through the roof of a shelter house. In any of the clips that any of you seen, did any of the tarp material of either the shelter or the backdrop behind them, did it move? And there was also 3 individuals standing immediately behind Charlie as he was shot. So if the projectile was in this line of sight, let's call it, hit Charlie and passed through him, it would have hit one of his security detail behind him. Okay? Now, the makeup of any .30 caliber projectile has enough power, especially within the neck cavity, to pass clean through, even if it makes contact with the vertebrae of the spine. It would remove them. It would exit them out the back. Okay? Stay along with me on this. Now, the FBI has released the so-called actual rifle that was used during the shooting, that they recovered from the black blanket, so on and so forth, as an earlier edition of a Mauser in the .30-06 caliber. Now, I've seen 2 different pictures online, both by the FBI release and then ones that the media is covering, saying this is what the FBI has released. Both of them, again, are 100-year-old platforms. The muzzle of neither one of those photographs is threaded. Okay, so going back, what did you hear during the shooting? And what was the weapon equipped with? Did it have a silencer on the end of the rifle? Was it designed from the factory to be able to be equipped with a silencer? Okay? Again, more to the story than what we're being allowed to believe. Okay? Now, they apparently have video showing this assailant leaving his position of the shot, running across the building, and exiting when it's closer to ground level, approximately 12 feet. The baggage that he carries up and over is not able to contain the full-length original version of that rifle. But upon recovery, the rifle has been reassembled to its full length. So again, go back to most of your bolt-action rifles. They have anywhere between a 20 to 24-inch barrel. And the stock can be an additional 10 to 16 inches longer. So over almost 30 inches or more, it would take to conceal this type of weapon unless it's disassembled. Now, the immediate video that FBI has released, watch the assailant running across the parking lot after he leaves the building. Is there anybody else running away from Charlie Kirk's position where he was hit? But if you look at the videos of the crowd dispersing immediately as soon as he's shot, you're telling me there's no students, approximately 3,000, were exiting out the same area where the assailant left from? Again, this could be all conspiracy theory. I don't want you to go down the wrong road. Obviously, if we got the perpetrator in this, he's going to get justice one way or the other. But is it truly the guy that did the shooting? Not according to the information the FBI is releasing so far. Now, Charlie's body has been flown back home. They have not released any kind of, report from the coroner, so on and so forth, yet autopsy. That information is still going to come out. But I'm, again, interested to see what happens because, according to that report, can the other evidence that we've seen within the live videos back it up? Now, again, the .30-06 projectile, even if you utilize a very light projectile, say a Barnes, a full copper jacketed bullet with no lead inside of it, in order for the bullet to change direction, it has to hit something hard. Again, in that portion of the neck, there isn't necessarily anything hard unless it is the vertebrae. It's soft tissue. Nothing to deflect the projectile. If it hits somewhere in the chest where a shirt moved, yes, there's obviously the rib cage, the brisque, collarbones that could cause the interruption of the flight path of the projectile, but still going to punch through. Ask any hunter, if they shoot a white-tailed deer right in the shoulder, right in the shoulder blade, where does the exit wound still come out? It still comes out on the back side of the shot. The shoulder blade is going to be shattered, so on and so forth, but it's still going to travel far enough through the internals of the white-tailed deer to do damage to the vital organs, the heart, lungs, so on and so forth. It might fragment, but the heaviest portion of the projectile will pass through on the back side. Is there any proof so far within the videos or the information being provided to us that shows a pass-through projectile? None whatsoever. Here's my theory. Again, I explained in the last video my experience, knowing what happens, so on and so forth. I believe the shooter was closer than the 200 meters. And I also believe the projectile that hit Charlie was not a 30-06 rifle caliber. I believe is a projectile that will not penetrate through even soft tissue. I believe the partitioned ammunition that can be purchased, while illegal in most states, that can be purchased for a 9mm pistol does the exact damage of what I've seen within the videos. The hole that was created, the punch onto Charlie's neck, and the immediate release of energy backwards to basically cause then his artery to just spew out all of the blood. Now again, within the video, if you see it, anytime the body is exposed to that much of an impact, it instantaneously goes into shock. Okay, muscle control is gone. There's also something that gets severed to the point where no other bodily functions are able to happen. In certain videos, the aftermath of Charlie falling to the ground, the FBI is describing that he grabbed his neck. He didn't. From the original footage, from the time the round hit him, it was instantaneously lights out. So my theory is that the shooter was actually in close proximity of Charlie right here, utilizing a 9mm pistol and the partitioned bullets. Those bullets will travel in approximately 3 to 4 inches before separating, and some of the finer fragments will pass through, but most of them will be held inside of the object. Now I believe that projectile went far enough in to where it actually got lodged. Some of those fragments got lodged into a spine, severing a spine, shutting down the entire nervous system within Charlie's body. That's my theory. Completely opposite of what the FBI has determined so far within their evidence. Again, folks, we have to go back. The investigation into the John F. Kennedy shooting was also done by the FBI. The shooting for Charlie Kirk is being done by the FBI. What have we found out between both incidents that has been untrue? The evidence they provide in their reports has not been accurate. They can't confirm any additional information to prove them wrong, but the information they're sharing is not accurate. Now, apparently, okay, this is apparently again what is coming out through media, whether this is FBI report or not, is that this individual admitted to his own father that he did the shooting. The father then reached out to somebody in the U.S. Marshal's office to report it, to turn his son in, ask where they need to go to actually turn themselves in, and then that U.S. Marshal then reported that to the FBI. So the father of the suspect is a police officer. He reports it to a U.S. Marshal. in order to get that information to the FBI. Okay? What's in common with all these individuals? Okay, this is conspiracy theory, maybe again, fellas, ladies and gentlemen. Every member that is sharing the information is a government employee. Okay? I can't make this up. These are the facts so far of what's been reported through the media and directly from FBI agents approaching the podium, doing their media explanations, so on and so forth. Even the president coming out and backing some of this information up. Is it factual? Now, also from the point of view that the FBI has provided, the location where they found the candies, the little candy corns, and the imprint of somebody down in a prone position in the gravel on the roof. Again, those are photos being shared with us, right, folks? But from the point of view, from Charlie's perspective up this way, what is the construction of the roofs of the buildings? They're not gravel. Now, if they're a flat roof, they're going to be filled in with gravel, okay? But the architecture of the edges of the roof are going to be a different material and different color. Now, if you go to the video, once again, the FBI report of when the assailant is leaving the rooftop to drop down approximately that 12 feet onto the ground, they say they actually got the imprints of their elbows and so on and so forth where the individual is climbing off the roof. Get within the video, pay attention. What is the material of the roof made out of where this suspected shooter laid down in order to drop down from the roof? There's no gravel. Immediately upon dropping down to the grass, you can see the size of the duffel bag. It's approximately approximately 29 to 35 inches. Okay. When the barrel, just the barrel of the Mauser is anywhere from 20 to 24. Okay, so this is just the barrel length. If there was a silencer, you can add an additional 3 to 6 inches. If it's equipped on the stock, as within the photos the FBI is providing, there's additional 10 to 16 inches of length to the firearm. Now you basically have something that's similar to 4 feet. So I'm going to put this right here, 4 feet. It is just below the camera as I'm touching the ground. That duffel bag, I'm 6 foot tall, that duffel bag would just be above my belly if the rifle is being stored in that duffel bag. Now, the assailant, the shooter, was not 6 foot tall, and the duffel bag looked even smaller to him, to the point where it was only basically from his belt buckle down to the ground. Could that duffel bag have contained the rifle with a silencer on? Because once again, we can go right back to the video. The sound during the video didn't echo between the buildings. It was a silenced caliber. Now, also from the position of where the candy corn was found, a corner of an adjacent building is If you raise up, it looks like there's a perfect line of sight right where Charlie was sitting. If you go ahead and Google it, you can Google all of this stuff. If you actually go to where that position is, the corner of that building covers this half of the shelter, approximately where Charlie was sitting. Now again, with the concussion out of the end of the barrel, that sound would have hit that building, echoed off, and there would have been at least 4 echoes of the firing of that rifle. You would have heard the immediate crack with 4 echoes following it. Now down here at, let's call it ground zero, what would you hear? You would hear the crack of the projectile traveling through the air, which is confirmed in a lot of different videos. But they are two-dimensional. You can only hear the sound. You can't hear the direction because of the sound only being two-dimensional. You cannot confirm that the round came from the rooftop. In the video, again, look at how the crowd is dispersing. They're immediately moving away from the tent that Charlie Kirk was sitting in. Now you're telling me individuals that immediately started running when the firearm sound was heard and Charlie was noticed as being shot. You're telling me that individuals that were seated up in this region here were not able to get through those buildings and were in a parking lot where the assailant came down off the building. Because again, go to the FBI video of that individual coming down the building. There's nobody visually in the background. Nothing. So again, folks, I cannot necessarily believe the reports coming from the FBI. They're bragging, saying that within 36 hours, they solved this mystery. If it wasn't for somebody turning themselves in, who are also members of the government, would they have ever caught him? They may have gotten the fingerprints off the firearm. They're not going to have a database for this individual if he's never been fingerprinted before. Did anybody from the university recognize him to where any of the other students said, oh, he's actually a student here at the university. We know exactly who he is. His roommates. Has anybody come forward out of that? The FBI hasn't released that information yet. And they're also saying that each one of the casings found with the rifle, encased in a blanket, not in a black duffel bag, also had, messages written on them. Okay. But they didn't supply those pictures along with the rifle. Can we see the evidence to prove the stories that the FBI is reporting? I don't believe all of this. I said again, I believe the theory, my theory is that is somebody much closer, approximately in this area from Charlie, with a silenced 9mm with that partition projectile that shot Charlie in the neck. There was no pass-through. The hole that we actually see in his neck is the entry hole. There is not an exit hole because those partitions were enough to go through his neck and get lodged in his spine, instantaneously severing his spinal cord. The 9mm with that type of projectile will not have an exit hole, especially when it comes in contact with the vertebrae. So again, going back, we're going to see what the coroner's report, the autopsy reports. Now you also notice they've rushed Charlie's body back to his home state. He wasn't kept in Utah for investigation. Was that out of just care of getting him back home within 36 hours? How many other cases, folks, how many other cases in our history of where individuals were part of an investigation where they locked that individual's body down within a local agency's housing units, okay? How fast did they transport an individual to be buried? Especially at this level of a government investigation. Charlie was being flown home before they caught the assailant. And the assailant, they're taking credit of saying basically 33 hours, we're able to solve this mystery. Would they have caught them if it wasn't for a government official admitting that their son was involved with this? I believe they're trying to create a situation where if he goes to court and is on a panel of peers, they can fight the evidence the FBI has provided to the point where there'd be a hung jury. That's my prediction. Is that the outcome I want to happen? No, I want the truth to be told. The autopsy, the angle of the shot, the individuals behind or within circumference around Charlie, none of them injured. According to the report so far, there was nothing that hit the tent to cause it to move whatsoever. And there was even individuals standing behind Charlie as he's speaking to an individual that would have been standing directly in the line or the flight path of the projectile. So the conspiracy theory is now that the individuals asking the questions of Charlie was standing directly underneath the bullet flight path. Now, if you are, okay, again, if you are a master detective or know your enemy, would your enemy be standing between you and the target if he knows where you're going to be firing the rifle off from? Okay. There was also two other individuals off to the side of Charlie Kirk that were either having some itching fits or they were actually giving certain signs leading up to that. Now that could be part of his security detail, giving signs to other security members that are out in the crowd to help control the crowd. But the conspiracy theorists out there right now are saying that basically the larger gentleman standing closest to Charlie in the background was actually giving orders of the countdown, giving orders to the individual asking the questions and to the shooter. Now, as I spoke in the last video, my experience as a member of a firing team, SWAT teams, when they enter into a building, if they have support from designated marksmen, there's 3 different teams. And to basically throw off any of these assailants or any of the enemies to know which direction the fire is coming from or where the entry point is going to be, they will shoot simultaneously. Okay, so there's 3 windows. They have eyes on target, so on and so forth. They will use a countdown. In that countdown, whether it's on a radio or individuals in line of the SWAT team going to make the entry, they'll say, here we go, 5, 4, 3, 2, on 2, on the pronunciation of the T. All 3 of the designated marksmen will pull the trigger. So no matter where you're standing, you're not going to be able to zero in on a specific target. 2, 1, at the 1 is when the SWAT team will actually go into their entry, knocking down the door, blasting the door open, creating a door, so on and so forth. It's typical SWAT type tactics. Now again, going back to the sound, use all of your senses. Okay? The sound, which direction it would be coming from? It was shot from the rooftop. It would echo, okay? So that would confuse individuals in the crowd of where the shot actually come from. It would throw them off. And most of the crowd just immediately started running from the center, the tent where Charlie was located at. But now there's individuals standing above Charlie on a second story build or a second story platform above the car garage that was directly behind Charlie's tent. When the shot went off, they didn't turn and run away. They actually ran to the edge of that railing to view what was going on below. Well, that could be a reaction to fear, so on and so forth, or being a little bit brave to check things out. Now, there's another individual that's online. I just got done watching it. That was literally within the front row, right by Charlie, standing next to the guy asking the questions. In the third row, he was in the front row, basically just off in between. He confirms that he cannot tell where the gunshot came from. He believes it came from his right side. That he was turning, looking at the guy asking the question, turned back to look at the response from Charlie. And at the moment Charlie went to put his microphone down to ask about the gang violence, he then turned back to see the rebuttal, and he heard the gunshot to his right. Not from his left, from his right. So again, I don't believe the FBI reports. You can make your own conclusion out of this. I'm not trying to create any drama. I formulate the information I possibly can to find the truth. And from the FBI reports, their story's not checking out. With that, see you later.